Go. Hey, we've been doing the pre-show and we haven't even hit the button here, so it is time now to hit the button and say hello. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode number 529. This, my friends, is the pre-show, the time where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say outrageous things. And boy, I feel like we've already done the best. We weren't even on the air.
And for those who missed it, I challenged James to a barbecue contest.
Yeah, no, we've been talking about barbecue.
His favorite place against a new favorite place I've discovered.
All right. Well, no, I'm in. A new barbecue joint makes me happy. So we're going to go down to the new barbecue joint.
In the jail in Helena.
In the jailhouse.
In the old jail. Now, be specific.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clearing that up, Brian.
Yes, the old jail.
And we talked about cheap Chinese, and we've talked about... what else have we talked about?
You need to ask me about our balloon launch we did today, James. It was
how'd that go?
It could not have been better. We've retrieved the balloon out of a tree, or the parachute and the payload out of a tree near Woodland, Alabama. What county's Woodland, Alabama in, James?
It's in Randolph County.
Very good.
How in the world? No, wait a minute.
Wow.
Was it
Wait a minute. That's a very rural county. How in the world are you going to find that thing in the middle of nowhere?
A GPS, goes on the unit.
Was it in the tree before or after the mission?
At the end of the mission, and the only danger was that the retrieval crew nearly got attacked by a possum. So.
Show title.
Yeah, there was
no doubt that is the show title.
There was a text, right at the end, and said, we found it. It's up in the tree. We've got a big stick. We're trying to get it down. Oh no, a possum is coming down the tree after us.
You mean the instrument and the payload and everything interrupt the possum, huh?
It's just amazing. You can track it. It's even on the interstate now as it's coming back to Birmingham. It's tracking along. So. It's amazing, because all the places this thing could come down, it could come down in the Tallapoosa River, it could come down in Lake Logan Martin, it could come down in the Talladega National Forest, and it picked the edge of a farm clearing in Randolph County. So,
wow, fabulous.
Couldn't have been better, because, it's really for naught if you don't get the two GoPros back and the instrumentation. So,
it had two GoPros on it?
Had two GoPros.
When do we get to see this video?
Next week. Actually, I have the teacher and a couple of the students on the show, and at the beginning, just for a few minutes, and let them tell about their experience, because it really was huge. It really was great.
Who paid for all this?
A grant. Teacher signed up for a grant, and that's how I found out about it. And paid for the two GoPros and the balloon and all the helium and all that. So subsequent launches are going to be almost no cost at all. Because once you retrieve all the equipment, you're good to go again. So it's going to be a good sort of, do it again, renewable source of science education for the kids.
I've got one of those coming up later this month, Bill.
Oh, cool. Well, I've learned a lot, I tell you what. It's been a lot of fun. Just so neat, having it go exactly predicted it would.
Hey, we're checking John's email. This is good. Oh, this is good.
Uh-oh.
How did I manage that?
Oh, this is awesome.
Dumb. That was dumb.
John got an email from nightcallnurses.com there. Your monthly subscription is running out.
Yeah. That was dumb.
So Aubrey, you were in the studio for the first time ever on the show.
Yep, I'm here.
The chief is in.
And having to whisper.
Now, what we're gonna do email. Can you do email if we do it like early?
Sure.
Okay.
We've got
We're gonna do it early, so we're gonna do email early.
She doesn't have her good microphone.
Oh no, I don't have the good microphone. How do I?
It sounds fine. The level's a little low, but it's okay.
All right.
It's okay.
I can speak up. I have a loud voice.
No, you're good. And in the audio, they do some post-processing to level it all out. And now Rick said that he's going to be busy. What did he say? There's a moderate risk he wouldn't make the show.
Yeah, but he's only in a slight risk.
Yeah, that was a.
There's nothing going on right now. I'm just down the road from him.
Yeah, John is actually out there, and it's weird. It's like normally when I just type in R-I-C-K, he pops up, and I don't see him. I see Richard Smith, Noah Federal, which is like his, but that's not the one he uses for the show, and it's like, that is just so strange. Hey, Rick, if you're listening to this, send me an email with the email that you use for your Google account that we need to get you on the show here, because I think that's what I'm going to have to do, is use his, I think he doesn't use his noaa.gov address for this. He uses a personal email account, so. Hey, Victor, can you hear us?
Uh-oh. Victor's muted.
Uh-oh. No audio. Yeah, you might go up there to the gear and check your audio source and be sure you got the right one turned on.
Hey, how about that? Is that any better?
Much better.
Bingo.
Hey. Great. How are you guys?
Good.
Very good.
Thanks for joining us on short notice, Victor.
Not a problem.
Hey, James,
Yo.
look at the notes. I posted Rick's email address.
Oh, good.
Oh.
You were an absolute
Gentleman and a
genius.
scholar.
Wow, you.
No, that would be me.
And that is him.
Are you changing your residence to Oklahoma, Dr. Scala?
You might think so, right? I tell you one thing, though. I'm going to keep going to Rudy's. Every time I come out here, they're going to know me when I come in the door.
So we went in there, and goodness, who was with me that night? Kevin, were you there at Rudy's?
Sorry, where?
Were you there?
Yeah.
Rudy's. Yeah, Kevin was there. That was great. we were messing with Chuck Doswell about what he was eating, and
Yes, that was a fun night. I enjoyed that immensely.
Classic.
I'd never really gotten to hang with Chuck, so that was. And then he
that was a slice of Americana right there.
it was fun to hang out with him. He was nice to me, and then he told me to F off in the parking lot before we
Some things never change.
It all happened right there at Rudy's.
Yeah, which I wear as a badge. So.
All right, let's get this thing started, because Rick has been invited now with the right address, so we can start this thing. So, therefore, welcome to our television guests. Ignore what you just heard Kevin say.
Uh-oh. That was
here we go. Oh boy, here we go. Oh, and Brian, I don't have a WeatherBrains 101.
You know why?
Why? You didn't do one.
Because I typed it up and didn't record it, so I guess you won't have one.
Do it live.
There
Do it
you
live.
go.
I'd rather
do it
not.
live.
Probably.
All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time to talk weather. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 529, the show that is over 10 years old. 529 episodes strong. We talk weather, and we thank you for joining us. We got a good show up here tonight. This is for March 7th, 2016. Still having a hard time saying that. But I want to start with Aubrey Urbanowitz, who for the first time is joining us in the studio, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Newly
Here with the
designated.
lights.
She doesn't sound too excited about that.
She's talking softly.
I'm very excited. Yeah, it's hard to tell who's in here, but we still have about 20 minutes before we get set with show. So.
And for those that are new listeners or viewers here, the odd thing about this show, you now have three on the show that are actually working television while we do this show. Now, in my case, I just have a late news, which is 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. Aubrey and Kevin have a 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central newscast they have to do right in the middle of the show here. So they just kind of come and go. Kevin, give Aubrey some tips on doing the show.
Wow. Prepare to be frustrated, because it's really aggravating, because we get into this and we just get going, and then you got to go do stuff, and then you miss all the substance, and you come back and ask questions that have already been asked and answered already. So it is pretty aggravating.
All right. Well, I'm prepared for it, and we'll see what happens. And I'd like to get my shows all set, especially on calm nights, so I can stay in as long as I can.
Yeah.
So to honor Aubrey's first night in this mode here. We're going to do her segment. We've never done the email at the beginning. Are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Sure.
All right. We're going to roll that email music because I bet you Aubrey just happens to have some email.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Yes, and the email inbox is absolutely full. I'll have to bring my microphone next time and see if I can figure out how to plug it into this thing. We'll see. All right, so first one comes from Cameron Venable. Hello, friends. It's been a while since we chatted, but I just wanted to let everyone know the wonderful news. He is leaving California and moving to Texas because Cameron got a job as a TV meteorologist in Amarillo. So congratulations, Cameron. Well done, graduating from the San Jose State University. So well done. Marcus Choops always sends us some great links, and he sent us a link from the LouisianaSportsman.com about, and I don't like animal stories. I don't like to do animal stories, but we can post the link. But it's about a group of ducks, and they got struck by lightning. Very sad. I'm heartbroken. So we're gonna send some good thoughts to the rest of the ducks. This next message comes in from Clyde Hughes. Says, hey, WeatherBrain gang, I've enjoyed the guests and features. Thought I would make a suggestion for an upcoming show. Guest idea, one major storm memory was the Union City, Oklahoma tornado, May 24th, 1973. It occurred a few miles from where Clyde lived. Asked if we can revisit the tornado and kind of document it, who was there in the field, and a little bit more detail about the storm. And Bill reached out to him and said that he reached out to Harold Brooks and see who we could pair with, maybe Chuck Doswell from that event. So we will let you know what we come up with. We also had another guest suggestion from Nick Rutledge. Recently completed the OK First program with the Oklahoma Mesonet. I would like to suggest James Hawker and Andrea Melvin with the OK Mesonet for future WeatherBrains. So we appreciate that guest suggestion. And Ken Hoagland just sent in a guest suggestion tonight. And I believe, is this the current guest that we have on this evening, or do we make a last-minute switch?
This was a last-minute switch.
Last-minute switch. So Ken, Doctor, tell me. I don't want to butcher his name.
All right. Tonight's guest?
No, the original guest.
Oh, I don't remember now.
No, that is tonight's guest.
Yeah, the one that's up there now is tonight's
that's
guest.
tonight's
You're right.
guest.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry. That was the replacement at the last minute.
And pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it.
So, yeah, Aubrey, it's Gensini, Gensini. Yep,
Gensini. So Ken, your guest is on. We have him on tonight, so I hope you're listening.
That's service, huh?
Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely. If we could only always do it that way. So thanks again for those guest suggestions and your show topics. We love getting those ideas. You can send them to us, email at weatherbrains.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll, of course, be checking those emails.
All right, so there you go. We got the email in at the top of the show. So, Aubrey, thank you for that. Let's see. Brian Peters, we'll go quickly. Well, let's go to Kevin because he's the other guy that's got a newscast coming up. You're in Wichita Falls. You've got some active weather, huh?
Had some just to our east and southeast. I was watching a little tornado action in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. My DMA is pretty quiet, although looking at the HER, looks like we're going to maybe light up with some stuff coming in from the southwest in the wee hours, maybe on the 3 to 4 o'clock time frame, so we'll watch that. And I have a ray of hope for you guys, and this may be an assignment for Bill, but if you guys want to turn the accelerant back on, I have my topic. I want to get somebody like Mussolini or somebody up on top to talk about this nonsense where the Weather Service can't have an app and how AccuWeather keeps the Weather Service under their thumb. I was at the TESSA conference. Oh, I got to say hi to somebody too. The Texas Severe Storms Conference annual, I think it's the 21st year now, was this weekend on Saturday in Colleyville. I need to do a shout out to Martin Diaz. He was at the conference and came up and said hello, and we took a picture, and it's on my Twitter feed. So if you want to see Martin, go follow him on Twitter. And thanks for coming up, Martin. I do really appreciate that. But there was a couple of really good presentations. One was by Mark Fox, who's the WCM in Fort Worth, and he did a little presentation on the day after Christmas storms that dropped a couple of tornadoes and did a lot of damage in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it was a fairly wide-ranging talk, but the thing that got me wound up was that they're looking back and doing some research and some study on the communication process within the weather enterprise and how the Weather Service messages move between media and emergency management people and first responders and things like that and the public. And his point, and it looks like they're writing some sort of a paper on this, and I think accurately so, is that the research they've done suggests that the direct communication from the National Weather Service to the public is sorely lacking. And I'm gathering, and I'm reading between the lines a little bit, but I think there's some pretty big discussion about that within the Weather Service and certain forces within the Weather Service. And after being there, I got a message from a friend of mine, totally different market, totally different Weather Service forecast office, totally different MIC, but he was recounting a conversation that he had had with that MIC, same kinds of discussions, and was also talking about how there are forces within the Weather Service that really want to improve this communication and talk more about apps and so on and so forth. And we just need to get somebody from AccuWeather or Ussolini on here or somebody to talk about this nonsense, because they're being held under the thumb of AccuWeather and Nate's not here. Nate knows the name of this group that is all full of AccuWeather people. It's the American Weather and Climate, Protection Force or whatever the heck it's called. And it's just one of these nonsense organizations that's used to again keep the Weather Service under their thumb. And I'm just tired of it. So if you want to turn the accelerant back on, obviously I'm there now. But
so this is what we need to do. We got to get Louis on here. We got to get Mike Smith, and we got to get Kevin.
Yeah. Well, because I'm pretty frustrated by this.
Town Death Cage match.
I'm pretty frustrated with this for a couple of reasons. The ones I've just explained, but the other thing that makes me angry or frustrated is that this is yet another call to the broadcast industry. You are being marginalized. The internet eats middlemen, and now we have the Weather Service coming forth, and there are forces within the Weather Service, I gather, that are trying to change this. And it may be a long haul, but the broadcasters who've been sitting back on their laurels for so many years, you are in trouble. And this is another message that somebody is chipping away at your foundation. You're not the only game in town anymore. And I think that if you sit back and rest on that, we're all in for a lot of trouble. Now I'm all wound up, and I got to go do my Fox show.
All right. Hey, Brian, say 2 syllables.
Sorry.
2 syllables.
Yeah, you do whatever you do to fix your mic. You've gone to the buzzing thing.
How's that?
Doing that, we have much better. So, Brian's got a big spotter training series that begins tomorrow evening. Brian, have you been doing push-ups with your tongue to get ready?
Yes, I'm trying to figure out if I can get an hour in and get 90 slides in.
Wow. Now you got 90 minutes. You got 90 minutes, and again, for those that are listening, this is Brian is a WCM, and this is what he did with the Weather Service. But now he's on the dark side, and he's training for us, and we're going to do 4 basic spotter training sessions. Then we're going to do the big Shazam party, shindig, whatever you call it, April 9th. In Birmingham, which is our market here. We'll do the basic and the advanced. I'll be speaking that day. Kevin Laws of the Weather Service in Birmingham will be speaking. So, Brian, you're going to be busy, man. Busy for the next month.
Yes. Why I don't get the big bucks.
Yeah. But you do it because you want to do it. You love this.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We think Dr. John has moved to Oklahoma. John is living now in a Motel 6 somewhere out there in Chickasha, Oklahoma.
That's right. I can look out the window and see this line of storms well to the southeast, but you can see the lightning out there. So this is becoming a flood issue this evening from, say, Fort Worth, northeast into south central and southeastern Oklahoma. So we're waiting for that upper level system, I think, to come out through the overnight and into tomorrow. I think tomorrow probably is the more severe weather event around here than today.
And we're nosy, Dr. John. What brings you to Norman again?
Again, well, this time, I don't know if you can see this This is the Event Safety Alliance Severe Weather Summit that's taking place tomorrow and Wednesday. So this is for all of those folks involved with live entertainment. So I understand there'll be some ESPN people here. We're going to be looking at all those that set up outdoor venues, and we're going to be giving them some severe weather instruction.
Awesome. Yeah, so I saw an email from Kevin about that this looks just fantastic. So
it's
we
great.
want
I'm
a
actually the
full
lead.
report next week.
I'm the lead presentation tomorrow morning. I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm kicking this thing off.
Well, it's that hair, man. I mean, if I had hair that good looking, I'd be the lead-off guy. So, you know.
There's more than just hair here, let me tell you.
Yeah. No, we want a full written report next week. So let's see. Nate is off. I think he's having to be Mr. Mom tonight. So Bill Murray, he's moved up from his 1200 baud modem now. Bill, what kind of bandwidth you got over there?
I added something called a range extender, James, to my Airport Extreme because, you know, my weather office is in the basement. And, boy, it made all the difference in the world. I mean, it went from 2-3 gigs down to 33 gigs down and 12-15 gigs up. So it seems to be working fine. So hopefully I can make it all the way through a show tonight without having to restart my Google Hangout.
Cool. And by the way, let me real quick before we bring in the guest here, let me give a shout out to my friends down at the University of South Alabama. I spent the weekend there at their annual CCAPS conference. Had some great speakers. I was not one of them. I'm just a bag of hot air, but it was great. It was great hearing from our friend Dr. Marshall Shepard of the University of Georgia and the host of Weather Geeks and the Weather Channel. We had Mike Gibson, the radar guy, Gibson Ridge, GR Level 2 GR analyst. He was there, and Rich Thompson of the Storm Prediction Center. He's kind of like a big deal. So it was great.
Is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, he's you know, you get him and Hart together, and boy, the brain power in that room. But what those guys have done over the years is just fantastic. But we had a great conference, so thanks to everybody there for bringing us down and being very kind and nice to us. And we had a ball, met a lot of WeatherBrains viewers and listeners. A lot of photographs were made. So, Bill, I'll turn it over to you and bring in our guest.
Yeah, James. Tonight's guest, WeatherBrain, is an atmospheric scientist with deep roots in severe convective storms, synoptic meteorology, applied climatology, GIS, operational meteorology, and hazards. He's an associate professor of meteorology at the College of DuPage. Dr. Victor Gensini, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Hey, glad to be here. Long-time listener, and it's very nice to be on with all of you. So looking forward to tonight.
Well, we were glad to see your name in the news in this past week, and to have you suggested probably a record, Victor, the most number of guest suggestions ever to come out of our audience, based on what you that AP story that was written about you this week. So we were glad you were able to join us on short notice because our scheduled guest, Jeff Medlin, National Weather Service in Mobile, could not join us tonight. And I think it's interesting. I'll just point this out real quick. There is a serious rip current high surf threat this week along the Gulf Coast, and we're going to have Jeff on in a few weeks to talk about that very thing. But this week there are going to be some significant swells affecting the northern Gulf Coast because of this deep fish that's going to be coming across the Gulf, and it's going to be quite a serious situation for spring breakers along the Alabama and Northwest Florida coast. So it's pretty dangerous. So, but we're glad you could join us at the last minute.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting you mentioned that, Bill. My very first research paper was on rip current fatalities in the United States and sort of exposing how Florida was one of the highest places in the country for rip current. And it was actually happening during broad high pressure off to the east and clear skies, and beachgoers were there, and you get this long fetch coming on shore, and I think, helped contributed to rip current fatalities. It's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because that swell period is so critical. In creating rip currents. And, I was amazed when I talked to Jeff the first time. He said, Bill, what do you think is the most deadly phenomenon that affects our county warning area? They get tornadoes there, they get hurricanes, they get tons of lightning. And, you could have guessed any of those things. And he said, no, Bill, it's rip currents. That's our deadliest phenomenon on Alabama's and Northwest Florida's Gulf Coast. I didn't record that. I wish I had done that. I didn't ask him that specific question, John. But I'm sure it's in the teens or 20s every year. And this week could really be a especially deadly week, especially with all the spring breakers there. And like Victor said, the weather is going to be beautiful. The water's a little bit cold still, 66 degrees, but, that's just going to be an amazing situation. And normally when you see the wind shift back around to the northwest, you think the rip current threat goes down, but this wave train is going to be so powerful, these 13, 14-second period swells, they're going to be running, 8 to 10 feet. It's going to be a powerful situation right on through the weekend. So, worth pointing out. Interesting that your research has touched on that.
Yeah, we actually estimate about 100 people per year are killed by rip currents, which puts it right up there with lightning and even tornadoes. So.
And they don't even count people who swim, in passes and things like that as rip current fatalities. Those are just swift current fatalities, and that would add even further to it. So. Pretty crazy, and something that affects us a lot during the tropical season, but it's going to affect us this week here in the southeast. So when we talked this morning, you and Harold Brooks are good friends, and you both share a love for the Cardinals, huh, Victor?
Yes, that's right. A big baseball fan, and I spent a summer studying under Harold in 2007, and found out that he was from St. Louis, and we definitely shared baseball history. He's a really good baseball historian. Ask him about baseball sometime; he'll talk your ear off. But yeah, big Cardinals fan, even though living in Chicago, which is tough, the north side versus the south side. So I've been planted up there, and it's difficult to talk baseball with anybody, especially the way the Cubs look like they'll be this year. But I grew up actually south of Interstate 80, so it's a little bit more of a safe zone for Cardinals fans.
Well, I saw a really neat post somewhere on the internet this past week, a Cardinals fan getting ready for baseball season that had a picture of the Cubs' last known World Series parade, which featured a bunch of covered wagons heading out west. So I guess that was 1908. Huh? So I thought this morning that I would definitely be talking to a Cubs or to a White Sox fan, but I was glad to know that you're a Cardinals fan, Victor. So.
Yeah, I would say the White Sox are my AL team, but the Cubs have a way to go to catch us. So.
Hey,
it'd be an interesting year for them.
Sorry, Bill.
Go ahead,
Victor.
John.
If you're a real baseball fan, a big baseball fan, have you read the book by Robert K. Adair called The Physics of Baseball?
I have not, but somebody actually had recommended that to me at some point. I just haven't had a chance to read that, but I have heard of that book, so I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, dip into it. It's pretty good.
Okay.
So Victor, all this time we've been doing the show, and all the connections and all the love we have for the College of DuPage, I don't think, James, we've ever had Cervatka or anybody from the College of DuPage on here. So we're lucky to have you tonight. Tell us what's going on there at the College of DuPage.
Yeah, well, the past 24 hours have been, the past the 48 hours. You wake up on Sunday having coffee and you see your name going across the ticker of Fox News and some of the major news channels, and it's just like, I think it was a very surreal experience. It was certainly humbling, and there's been a lot of people in this process. It's certainly not just me, and certainly we can get into the meat of that, but College of DuPage itself is actually one of the larger community colleges in the country. We have right now about an enrollment of 29,000, so almost 30,000 students. And we're in the western suburbs of Chicago, only about a 40-minute drive from Northern Illinois University in DeKalb if you head straight west on Interstate 88. And really, our meteorology program, was started by Paul Cervatka in the late 80s, and has really been a premier institution for undergraduate meteorology education for quite some time. And I think that's partly because Paul's an extremely outstanding instructor, but he also he incorporates actually upper level classes into the lower level curriculum, is allow students to learn meteorology their first 2 years, where they really, if they were going to a university, they might not get that until the junior or senior year. So it's been great, busy. We have a lot of great things going on right now. We're looking to sort of expand what we do in our reach and starting to offer some online classes as well. So it's really an exciting time in the COD.
So now, there used to be a great symposium you guys did in the spring. Are you still doing it?
We haven't done one, I believe, it's been the mid-2000s, since I can remember that we had our last conference. And we have actually some talk next year about doing something in the spring, more of a severe weather symposium / broadcaster conference, kind of like what it was done in the past. And I think if Nate was here, I think Nate actually attended one of those symposiums from COD. So we're looking into doing that. Obviously, it takes a lot of planning for a conference, but we would like to do that in the off years of severe local storms through the AMS. So something to do for severe weather folks on the off years. with that said, I'm actually heading to a conference tomorrow. I'm leaving for New York City tomorrow morning for something called SevCon 16, which is the Severe Convective Storms and Climate Conference at Columbia University. Last year we had a workshop in D.C. on this very stuff that we'll talk about tonight, and it was really successful, and we're looking forward to continuing the success here this week. So
I think you'll run into Harold Brooks there, won't you, if I remember correctly?
Harold will be there. The lineup is pretty impressive. Jeff Trapp, Greg Carbon, Yvette Richardson. It's actually a pretty astounding group. We also have a lot of folks from the insurance and reinsurance industry of how folks are affected by these longer range forecasts, anything from home premiums to risk models, catastrophe models. So it should be a really interesting conference.
So who's setting this conference up? Victor, Brian had sent me something about it. It looked very interesting, but I didn't get to plan to come to it.
Yeah, I can pull up the organizing committee. Is I believe Mike Tippett's on the organizing committee. Dr. Mike Tippett, Dr. John Allen from Columbia, and some of their collaborators and colleagues. But it's set up through it's through Columbia University, and just take a listen just really quickly of these keynote speakers that are confirmed. I mean, you have Harold Brooks, Greg Carbon, Adam Clark, Christina Kuhlman, Michael Coons, Kelly Hareed, Yvette Richardson, Eric Robinson, and Jeff Trapp are just the keynote folks. And it's 2 days of kind of intense talks and poster sessions on the connection between climatology and severe storms. So it should be a great conference.
Well, that'll be right up your alley, given the news this past weekend and your global wind oscillation forecast. Did you talk about that for a minute, Victor? How that came to be and how that's shaped up over time?
The relationship actually of the GWO to severe weather was really studied in a very case study sense by Ed Berry and Klaus Weichmann in really their paper in 2007. You'll remember Ed Berry used to be a SUE in I think a Dodge City office, and Klaus was at NCAR. Klaus is now retired, and Ed Berry is now in the private sector working with Dave Gold at WDT in Houston. And a lot of their research was focused on this GWO and really how it modulated not only severe weather but temperature across the United States. And I was talking with a colleague of mine when I was out. I filled in for a semester at Northern Illinois University teaching some synoptic classes, and I met a grad student there. His name was Al Marinero. We started talking about the possible linkages between GWO and severe weather. And honestly, that night I actually went home after our talk, and I just kind of did some really preliminary analysis, and I was getting some numbers. I'm like, this can't be right. We've never had a teleconnection like ENSO or AO or AMO, whatever. Pick your favorite atmospheric teleconnection. I never ever saw a relationship like that. And the first thing that comes to your mind as a researcher is like, hey, you did something wrong. Go back and double check your numbers. And the more I poured over it and the more I had other people look at it, the relationship was real. And that's really what we've exposed. We've exposed this relationship to the global wind oscillation, and I can certainly talk a little bit more about that if you'd like, but we've really exploited this relationship between the GWO and severe weather occurrence in the United States.
Yeah, go into that. We're very interested and fascinated by that, for sure, Victor.
Yeah, so the GWO itself is actually very basic. It's a measure of angular momentum, which sounds like a mouthful, but it's really, actually very convenient. We're on a spinning, rotating body, and so when you talk about angular momentum in the atmosphere, it's just the westerly component of wind. And we integrate all of the levels of the atmosphere and all the latitudes to create a plot of angular momentum. It's just really how much westerly flow is there. And so when you have high angular momentum, there's really strong zonal jets. They're oriented primarily east-west. When you have very low angular momentum cases, you see a lot more ridges and troughs and sort of what we would consider meridional flow across really both hemispheres. And so it's that degree of measurement that we really went into. And of course, as a severe storms forecaster, it makes sense. In the spring, you'd look for a deep trough entering the west coast of the United States, southerly flow, at the surface, creating an atmosphere that's pretty favorable for severe weather. So it's really the GWO is basically a measure of angular momentum. So there's a lot of, actually, angular momentum is not new. This is something that was used as early as Hadley. So believe it or not, the angular momentum actually has roots from the Hadley circulation. So we've kind of, I think, are standing on the shoulders of giants in some cases, taking a lot of progress over the past 30 years and just kind of making that final linkage between GWO and severe storms.
So you got a page up on your website. Is that the main place that you communicate it?
Yeah, and I'm certainly be willing to share this here. It's called if you just Google ERTAF, E-R-T-A-F, it's the Extended Range Tornado Activity Forecast. Of course, everybody has to have their own fancy acronym, right? And we have all our verification there in our forecast of severe weather activity for weeks 2 and 3. The headline itself, anybody who knows dealing with media, the headlines that went out were like, scientist has this new way to predict tornadoes 2 to 3 weeks in advance. And of course that's not true. We're not going to predict that a tornado is going to hit your home, right, 2 weeks or 3 weeks in advance. Heck, we can't even do that on day 1. So these forecasts are more for activity levels. So we're basically saying, either above average activity, below average activity, or right at climatology. And that's probably as good as we're going to get for a while until we begin to dig into this research a little bit more. But if you go to the EarthTAF page there, we just forecast basically A for average, AA, or BA for below average. It's really a lot like, to be honest with you, a CPC temperature forecast or precipitation forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, only we're doing it for severe weather activity.
So you see this as being a long-term sort of index that we can look out 2 weeks and just get an idea whether we're going to be above average or at or below average, huh?
Exactly, and I think this is not going to change the way we do watches and warnings. Of course, those will still obviously be very much a part of day 1 and the day 1 activity and that convective outlooks, etc. But this may allow emergency managers or event planners in that really long range that they need to move assets or think about events where people would be potentially very vulnerable to severe weather in maybe a 2 or 3 state area. This is, I think, where we maybe can make some strides or some value added. And of course, in the catastrophe sense, the risk, the reinsurance, the insurance, if you're expecting a month with above average activity, I think there's a lot of value for those folks as well. So this is really nothing more than just trying to a very basic forecast of where you are with respect to climatology based on not only the GWO but sort of this dynamic statistical blend. So we use things like the CFS, if you're familiar with the chiclet plots that Greg Carbon has made for severe weather, create like an aerial outlook almost like the CPC does for severe weather activity.
Yeah, Victor, this is absolutely fascinating. I'm doing the slap in the forehead over this. It's really, really interesting. Now we know that angular momentum is a conserved quantity, so are we looking at a redistribution of angular momentum? Is that effectively what we're talking about? Yeah,
so essentially what happens in the angular momentum sense in a case like El Nino, let's say we have a lot of tropical convection going on like we've had this past winter, the Hadley circulation essentially is kind of on steroids when that happens. Of course, when you think of El Nino, you think of a strong subtropical jet. But that convection, right, those convective turrets, they hit the top, they hit the tropopause, and as they go poleward, their angular momentum must be conserved, so they increase their zonal component of wind, which acts up, basically adds to the westerly momentum flow. We call it the westerly wind burst, if you're familiar with that term, and we add angular momentum, and then what we see is at some point, that conserved quantity, sort of the colloquial term in the map room is collapse. But what you essentially see is a change in that jet stream from a much more zonal east-west to this meridional north-south flow. And it's really that phase transition, this 812, what we call collapse. You can actually anticipate that in some cases 2 or 3 weeks in advance, especially if you have a nice, strong, nice what we call GWO orbit going on, which is exactly what we have right now.
What I like about this is intuitively, it makes sense. And I would really like to see this relationship pan out strongly.
Yeah, great point. I mean, a lot of the teleconnection work that's been done with severe weather, if you think of ENSO or AO, I mean, in some cases with ENSO, right, you're taking a very small Nino region in the Pacific and trying to say that, that correlates strongly with tornado activity on the plains. There's scale issues there. You have a lot of issues when you're thinking about El Nino, but this angular momentum is an atmospheric quantity, and what's really impressive, I think, about the findings that this paper exploited is that this is a global index. We're talking about a global index of angular momentum having a very strong relationship to severe weather activity in the plains and southeast states. So I think it's really exciting. I think we have a lot more work to be done. We just kind of scratched the surface with this, but you know, I have to acknowledge my co-author Al and discussions with Dave Gold and Brad Barrett at U.S. Naval Academy and John Allen at Columbia and even Paul Cervatka here at COD. We're kind of, I hope, sort of getting this process off the ground, and the hope would really be to come out with a CPC-style outlook for severe weather in the future.
So, Victor, the domain for your outlook right now is the entire United States. Will it expand, or will it eventually be made regional?
Yep, great question, Bill. That's really the next step, is to break this down to Southeast, and of course the folks in this Vortex Southeast project are very interested in this, as you can probably imagine. I've been talking with Eric Rasmussen, who's sort of the lead on the project of Vortex Southeast, is sort of asking me, you know, my thoughts as we go into early April here for severe weather and even late March. And you know, all things considered, from what I'm seeing in the budget of angular momentum, this should be a very active period in severe weather as we go through the end of March, as we're seeing this strong, broad zonal jet across the Pacific really start to collapse and just continued troughs entering the west coast of the United States, which is actually really good for California's precipitation.
Yeah, please send rain to Southern California.
Yeah. Victor, I'm wondering, the application that you're focusing on is severe weather, but I'm wondering about an application to winter storms with something like this.
Oh my gosh, the short answer is absolutely.
Yeah, that's
there's temperature relationships, there's precip. Me being sort of a convection junkie, I kind of went for severe weather first, and you know, if I had more time in the day and some grad students, I think that would be definitely the next step. Look at other mesoscale phenomena like winter storms or even ice storms or something. But you can imagine, you get big troughing in the west. This should allow for you know, cyclogenesis across the plains and potentially winter storms in the winter. We really just focused on the spring and severe weather, but heck, there's a lot to be done, and you know, I'm becoming a much stronger believer in angular momentum and the relationships that it has to weather patterns across the U.S. Absolutely.
Great, thanks.
So, Victor, explain when you go out to the right and you see the letter nomenclature there, the above average and average, forecast 2 and forecast 3. What are we looking at when we see that? What is the difference between the two periods, forecast 2 and forecast 3?
Okay. At the top of the page there where it says week 2 forecast, and just at the very, very top of the page, so the week 2 forecast is for March 13th through the 19th, above average. So what we're basically saying by above average is we're expecting greater than 150% of climatology for severe weather. So the climatology for week 2 is 14.6 tornadoes, and based on what we've looked at, you would expect at least 150% of that, so you're probably talking around 21, 22 tornadoes for the week of March 13th to the 19th. And then for week 3 forecast is March 20th through the 26th. We're right at average. We're expecting about 14 tornadoes or so across the country. So the A's just correspond to the sort of categorical level of where you are with respect to climatology. So you can see the forecast for forecast 2, which is actually this week, is AA for above average, and also above average for next week as well.
So your forecast for the 28th then would have been for this week for above average activity, and it appears that's going to pan out.
Well, I mean, we're certainly hoping. We're putting the rubber to the road here. You know, when you make these forecasts, you also have to keep in mind that you know, people ask you, are we going to be under the gun for severe weather? It really only takes one tornado, right, to make destroy a home or change someone's life. So although we're forecasting, you know, way above, in some cases, way above 14 tornadoes this week, you always hope that those stay out of populated areas. Absolutely.
Well, I know James has commented several times this spring, and this season just seems to have a feel to it. It concerns me, sort of like the 2011 season. Any ties to your oscillation and that sort of feel of energy in the atmosphere, even this early in the season?
A couple things I think that concern me about severe weather, or the potential likelihood for a lot of severe weather this year, would be the Gulf temperatures are running. The Gulf of Mexico temperatures are running average to above average this year. And so anytime you get southerly flow, you know, your dew points are probably going to tend to be above average, and that's part of the reason is we haven't had big frontal passages through the Gulf of Mexico. Sometimes in the winter you'll get these big cold fronts that'll pass down through the Yucatan and really scour the moisture. And I just checked here a couple minutes ago. I mean, we're talking 65 dew points with a sharp dry line already in place across Texas and Oklahoma today. So already, some signs, some indications that this is activity level is going to be high, and I think it's going to stay high through most of March. April will be interesting. The last time we went through one of these orbits, we got extremely unfavorable in December and in parts of January. So April will be kind of interesting, I think, to look at that. But if we certainly, at the large-scale pattern, when you transition out of Niños into Niñas, typically big severe weather years, and especially across the south central plains and the southeastern United States.
So, Victor, talk some about what you're doing in terms of dynamic modeling and downscaling the global climate model data using the WRF for the purposes of resolving convection and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that was another one of those superlative headlines that I got caught up in after my dissertation. So I did my PhD at the University of Georgia, and actually Marshall was on my committee. Tom Moat was my advisor, and what a great place to go to graduate school. UGA was great. I started off at Northern Illinois underneath Walker Ashley. I've had some amazing mentors in the past, and I can't really, I can't really go any further without giving them some major props. They were very hands-off advisors to sort of let me grow and do my research. And the downscaling stuff, which was really my dissertation, my PhD, what we would do is take global climate model data for many years in the future, and we'd feed that as initial conditions into WRF. And we'd try to pick out individual severe thunderstorms, because global climate models, right, they can't forecast severe weather because the resolution is not adequate. So what we do is we basically feed that into WRF. We configure WRF to allow convection, so we're doing simulations at less than 4 kilometers in some cases, and we're basically just trying to come up with these synthetic proxies for severe weather. So we set the WRF up to basically say, if updraft helicity inside of the model and reflectivity exceeds a certain threshold, we're going to count that as a climatological severe weather report. And what essentially came out of that research was an increase in severe weather in the future, in a future climate. But that's sort of exactly what the media latched onto. They missed the big point, which were some more high-end years and more low-end years, right? So it wasn't just an increase in severe weather. The mean certainly increased in a future climate, but there was a lot more variability. We had years that had a lot of severe weather, and we also had years that were very low in the future climate as well. So you saw basically a widening of the distribution in the future. So it wasn't just an increase.
Victor, for the same reason, I've been starting to get, well, not started, I've been concerned about the upcoming Atlantic tropical season for some of the same reasons that you're citing in terms of severe weather. This warming of the Gulf, I think the Caribbean is warm. The Madden-Julian oscillation is changing, and we're seeing a reduction in the ENSO phase. All of these things point in my direction that Florida better look out this season.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, one of the main factors, right, to tear apart those hurricanes that were there last year was a very strong subtropical jet and too much wind shear. So you sort of remove that from the factor, keep your warm sea surface temperatures in there, and you could certainly be looking at a much great hurricanes in the southeast. I haven't really looked at hurricanes in the GWO or hurricane activity, but I assume there might be some degree of relationship there. That would be something I think somebody would need to look into.
I think so. For those, if there are any EMs out there, or anybody involved in disaster preparedness, I know that you go through this every preseason, ramping up, thinking ahead, but I'm particularly concerned this year. I think it bodes for all of that effort to be in place well in advance.
Yeah. I want to mention just quickly one other thing about ERTAF, and if you go to that ERTAF page, we do have our forecast archive from last year. So, one thing I always stress to my students as well is that it's incredibly important to verify your forecast. If you're just spewing out, these aerial outlooks of, James, look out, right? Or Bill, look out, there's going to be massive severe weather outbreaks in April, and you don't verify those forecasts. Everybody knows that's listening to this podcast, if you're a forecaster, you're going to be wrong, and you just need to accept that. And you're going to be humbled even when you think there's going to be a severe weather outbreak and there's not. So you really have to, I mean, the verification is a key, and that's one thing we do about these forecasts. We're constantly verifying them and hopefully making them better at some point. So I just want to point that out. We do have last year's results posted up there on the page.
And Victor, you spoke, or John spoke to vulnerability, and you, of course, live in a city that is probably extremely vulnerable, especially to a potential tornado threat. Talk about what you've studied in relation to the big cities' vulnerability to severe weather.
Okay, so 3 largest cities in the U.S., right? LA, Chicago, and New York. And out of those 3, which one has the greatest risk of a tornado? Climatological probability, by far, it's Chicago, right? So we have incredible amounts of vulnerability and exposure. We haven't had a significant tornado in the Chicago metropolitan area since really 1990, the Plainfield tornado. But prior to that, it was really 1967, the Oak Lawn tornado. But we had an incredible close call last year that did not get much attention at all. That was the Fairdale-Rochelle tornado, right. EF4. That happened. If you pick up that tornado and move it 10 miles, it hits the Northern Illinois University campus. If you move it 60 miles, it goes right through the heart of DuPage County and into Cook County. We know that they can happen. We know that the business districts are not immune to them. And there is just some amazing research coming out now from Walker Ashley at Northern Illinois, who's looking at this idea of the expanding bullseye. And so if you can imagine a tornado event as a dart, you're going to close your eyes and throw the dart at the dartboard, and the only thing that's really happening is the bullseye is expanding larger. You have a greater likelihood of having these, tornado disasters. You're in what Walker calls, you're sort of loading the dice in your favor to get one of these events. Maybe they are increasing in the future, but one thing we know for certain in the future is that the western sprawl of Chicago is going to continue in Kane County and the southeastern part of the metro. And as your city grows larger, we're going to that dense residential dense residential housing is going to become even more and more vulnerable. So I think it's the physical factor is there, but there is a lot of complacency right now in Chicago, especially. It's quite unfortunate, and until it happens, as many people know, until it happens, that complacency is probably going to be there for a while.
Yes, it's a problem faced by many large cities in the United States, especially those that are in tornado-prone areas, for sure. Talk for a minute about the College of DuPage and students there, and what your advice is to them, Victor. And in what seems to be a glut of meteorologists, there also seems to be a glut of National Weather Service jobs potentially appearing on the horizon. What do you tell students these days?
Students these days, I'm sort of recently a student as well, and I sort of always tell students that, really to get a job in the field, you have to be better than half. You really have to be better than half, and you have to do something that sets you apart from other people. And now, just getting a degree in meteorology is not enough. In some cases, the master's degree has become the new bachelor's degree, and the PhD is sort of the new master's. And you have to have good presence. In social media, you have to be good with GIS, and computer programming is so vital right now in meteorology. If you can't program, or you're afraid to computer program, you're going to have significant difficulties, I think, in the future getting a job in the field of meteorology. So, we have our students right now in Paul's class, the intermediate class. I want to give them a shout out. They're learning entropy and some of the laws of specific heat and thermodynamics this week, and they're all stressed out getting ready for their exam this week. But we do have a good group of students there, and a lot of students that we send on to universities really excel in their junior and senior year because they've seen a lot of the thermodynamics and dynamics already. And then, of course, we also have students that want to go into other sectors, and they don't really want to do education forever. They want to do outreach. They want to do emergency management. We have a new certificate at College of DuPage called the Weather Hazards and Preparedness Certificate. It's really for non-majors, kind of focused around the idea of weather-ready nation, just getting people aware of all the National Weather Service products that exist. They complete the class with a FEMA certificate, which is Anticipating Hazardous Weather. So just, I think a lot of students see the significant benefit of being a so-called weather weenie, or at least weather aware, or even how to interpret radar in some cases. And we have, between Paul and I and our part-timers, we probably have 250 total students come through every semester, with about maybe 15 or 20 what I would consider majors that go on to transfer to four-year programs. So we're sort of proud of that, what we've built, and really what Paul has built, and I've just now started contributing to. I've been at College of DuPage now for about 4 years. So we really hope to continue our momentum in the right direction.
So you sort of hit it at your academic path with a few anecdotes. Talk about how that flowed and fill in the blanks where you left some things out there, Victor.
So I guess it started for me. You want to know when I caught the weather bug. I caught the weather bug in 2000.
That's the obvious question.
Yeah, I caught the weather bug in 2004. Some of you will remember the Granville, Utica tornado, April 20th of 2004. 8 people were killed at the Milestone Tap in Utica when they actually took shelter in the bar and the Milestone Tap collapsed. Those tornadoes were along an advancing warm front north in Illinois, and I was a senior in high school at the time. And the tornado actually started in Putnam County and went through Granville and went basically right over very, very close to my high school. And after that, I was in engineering, and I was set on a path for engineering. I'm like, nope. I want to do meteorology. I saw the damage firsthand, and I really haven't looked back after that. I did my bachelor and master's at NIU, and then I transferred down to the University of Georgia. But my one life-changing moment as a student was the summer of 2007. I spent a summer in Norman under Harold Brooks, and I learned more that summer about how to be a good student and what I needed to do to be successful. And I owe a lot of that to Harold and my other colleagues that were in that REU in Norman, and Daphne Ledoux, who runs a just top-notch REU program. Students out there that are looking to become researchers or be involved contribute in some way to the science. If you can get involved in an REU, even if you're not sure if you like research, apply for it and try it out. In some cases, I never thought I would do a PhD. I never thought I would do a master's. I really wanted to be a National Weather Service forecaster. That was my ultimate goal coming out of high school and into my early days in college. So things change, and my advisor, Walker, really pushed me towards the PhD, and it turned out to be one of the best things I've ever done.
That's awesome. Talk for a minute about the webpage. It's always been a gold standard in our field, and a recent upgrade to it in the last couple of years has made it even more modern. Talk about the website for a second. Who's responsible for it, and any other big plans for it in the future?
Yeah, lots of great things coming up on the website. We just a couple things here. We actually have an iPad or an Apple app coming out for our web page. It'll be a free app that's being developed by one of our students, Scott Bergholzer, and Nathan Holm, who's at NIU, a COD grad. The Android version will follow on that in probably the spring of 2017, but we're looking to launch our app on April 16th. It's a Saturday. The web page itself is seeing significant upgrades. We're actually switching our software. We've already done that with the HER model. So if you've noticed some upgrades of prettiness to our HER model page, that's where we're going with all the models in the next couple, really hopefully the next couple of weeks. We have 2 primary people that help with the website. Paul and I obviously do a lot with the website, but we have 2 part-time programmers that help us out, Mike Zaransky and Evan Anderson, who are at COD, and they help a lot with the back end, our servers. We have 2 major workhorse servers that serve a lot of the satellite data that you see. One really cool thing that you will see coming up, I got a feed from Dan Lindsay and Sierra of the GOES-R rapid scan data. So for severe weather on our satellite page, for those of you who like our satellite page, we're going to try to get that going in the next couple of weeks here, especially once we get into severe convection season. It's an amazing tool, that rapid scan imagery from GOES, especially when you're now casting for severe storms. So lots of things that come on the website. I wish I had more hours in the day to work on it. It is a labor of love for almost all of us, and we really strive to be one of the most comprehensive open source weather pages that's available. Between us and Penn State and the OU stuff, and now Pivotal Weather coming out, Weather Bell with a lot of free products. I mean, there's a lot of choices, but I think people a lot of times end up coming back to our page because there's a certain graphic or there's a certain way to access information that they like, and we've always tried to remove the user. Or try to remove any obstacle that the user might have to access the data. So those nice slider bars that you see were developed by Evan Anderson, and we are constantly changing things, and we'll probably continue to do that for as long as I'm at COD. But look for more models, look for more products. It's just a matter of time here before we really make some significant upgrades to the rest of the model sectors.
Yeah, right after I asked that question, Dr. John Scala weighed in on the chat and said, "Ha ha, he's on it right now," because a lot of us do spend a lot of time there for sure. And last question about the school. Talk about the storm chasing program. That's sort of the candy for a lot of people. Talk about that, where it's at right now, Victor.
So we have, for those who are unfamiliar, we have one of the longest running, we were actually the first tour group, I guess tour group if you want to say in quotes. We were the first academic group that were storm chasing. That was primarily Paul, and Paul has some amazing stories about their first year's storm chasing where they actually camping, right? They go camping storm chasing. That sounds like a terrible reality show with a nice nocturnal MCS, running over your tent at night, but it has grown into something now that is, we have people come in from other continents to come storm chasing with us. We are not a tour group, we are an academic group, and we focus every morning. We're doing hand analysis. The students are learning how to interpret maps. We launch weather balloons on our storm chases. We have every trip we launch at least 2 radiosondes now. So we try to give a well-rounded experience for students to see, and it's not just students, by the way, it's open to the public. Anybody can come on these storm chase trips, but people are seeing portions of the country that they've never seen before, and for many of them it's a really eye-opening, eye-changing experience because, quite frankly, why else would you ever be in liberal Kansas unless you're storm chasing, right? So you get some taste, some local food, and just see a portion of the country that is sort of really a mecca for me. I really like places like Kansas, western Kansas. There's something about the plains being a very unchanged landscape, if you will, that can be quite beautiful. And when you get the right storm in that setting, you can learn a lot. I can teach students more in 10 minutes in the field than they can ever learn in a textbook.
And by the way, that Bill, your audio's gone south.
And so what else is new?
Yeah, you got the sounds like a Russian woodpecker for those people that are ham radio guys.
I am a ham radio guy.
HF bands.
KC9YXT. I am a ham operator.
Awesome. Well, old timers that used to work HF, they remember the Russian woodpecker, and that thing would just sweep through the HF bands, like on 80 meters and 40 meters and 20 meters. And Bill has the Russian woodpecker sound going here. But I wanted to ask you this, Victor. You got Phil Klotzbach in the team at Colorado State. They do seasonal tropical outlook. So is this leading to a seasonal severe weather outlook from your guys?
So, James, great question. That's actually already in production by the group at Columbia. So they put out a seasonal forecast for severe weather this year. I don't exactly know what their numbers were. I think they called for 30% average. It was right around a call for average to below average because of the Nino. I have to go back and look at their forecast as well, but there is a group already at Columbia that's putting out a seasonal severe weather forecast with these, above average, below average type of numbers, very similar to the stuff that you mentioned with hurricanes. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more of that getting some PR probably this year, later this year, maybe probably next year for sure.
Awesome. And Bill, I think I falsely accused you here. That woodpecker's actually coming from Victor's audio here, so. Victor, you might want to.
I bet you.
How do you fix a Russian woodpecker? Maybe I tell you what. Let's do this. Let's roll one of the recorded segments. We'll come back, and Victor, maybe you can drop out and come back on. Maybe that'll fix it. So we're going to take a break here, and Brian, no Professor Peters live, right? Apparently not, because Brian is muted. We can't hear him. Whatever he's trying.
I'd rather not. We'll have a recorded
segment
next week.
All right, so we'll come back with one next week. So at this point, we're going to roll the astronomy report from Tony Rice. We'll come back with the weather roundup, picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Tomorrow, March 8th, the only total lunar eclipse of 2016 will occur. Totality will be visible starting early March 9th in Indonesia and will end late March 8th. Thanks to the straddling of the international dateline. A partial eclipse will be visible from Singapore, the Philippines, Thailand, and Honolulu, Hawaii. If you aren't already on your way to the South Pacific, you aren't going to be seeing it live, but NASA TV and the Exploratorium have you covered. A live webcast from a coral island 500 miles north of New Guinea begins at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on March 8th. Bay Area WeatherBrains listeners can watch the event live, free, at the Exploratorium in San Francisco's Embarcadero. Solar eclipses, especially total ones, aren't just an interesting event. Understanding the sun's atmosphere, the corona, helps us understand what accelerates the solar winds, what drives explosive clouds of solar material called coronal mass ejections that can cause space weather disruptions to satellites and radio communications here on Earth. These studies can also reveal what causes the corona to be so much hotter than the surface of the sun itself. We study the sun's corona using a device called a coronagraph. It helps block the light of the sun itself. But the best coronagraph is the moon passing in front of the sun. A total solar eclipse on May 29, 1919, helped prove the theory of general relativity. If you are hoping to see this eclipse with your own eyes, you won't have to wait long. The next total solar eclipse will be on August 21st, 2017, when the path of totality passes through Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, a bit of Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, a bit of Illinois, a bit of Kentucky, Tennessee, just a tiny bit of Georgia, a little bit of North Carolina, before making a southeastern swath through South Carolina, exiting around Charleston. Miss that one, and you can mark your calendars for March 30th, 2052, to see another total eclipse from U.S. soil, when the path of totality passes through Tallahassee, Florida, Savannah, Georgia, and yes, again, Charleston, South Carolina. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
That was great. Brian just said, is Kevin asleep? Kevin dozing off. That's awesome. Wow.
I'm not JB.
You know what? I tell
Am
you
I
what.
still
you know,
the Russian woodpecker, James?
You know, I think it's actually me here. I blamed everybody, but I think it's me. So what I'm going to do, I am going to actually stop Audio Hijack Pro for just a second, and I'm going to restart it. So hang on here. All right, we just stopped it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop both recordings. So we're going to edit this. And now we're back. Yes, sometimes, occasionally, Audio Hijack Pro has a little hiccup, and I think that's what that was. So now we are back. So, Kevin, you're wide awake, huh?
I was working on my phone here, doing phone things.
I was checking his stocks. All right, time for a weather roundup. So while we got Aubrey here, Aubrey, first off, how was your 10 o'clock news?
The 10 o'clock was good. Thank you very much for asking.
Awesome. So,
how polite.
So tell us about the weather in Virginia. How is it? Is it nice and warm, I guess, in coming days?
The weather is amazing. It's beautiful. It was cool this weekend, but today was great. I'm looking forward to running every day this week. We could tie or break records on Wednesday and Thursday. My forecast high is the record, mid-70s. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It'll be the first time we hit 70 degrees this year, and maybe breaking records with it. So, and the pattern looks like it's going to hold.
Awesome. Good deal. So, and again, Dr. John, you've got the satellite loop running. This is a very interesting trough digging down into Mexico here. A very interesting pattern setting up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Way.
Highly amplified.
I think I'm just going to give this thing a name now since it's going to be here for like a week and a half.
That's so true.
I think that's a good idea.
So this is actually a really good example of what you call really the Mayan Express. And Marshall Shepard actually wrote a really good piece on this in Forbes, how this would probably be a very large flood producer across a large majority of the South Central Plains.
Yeah, no question. No question.
Did he name it that?
The water value. Do what now, Kevin?
Did he name it that? The Mayan Express? I've not. I saw that go by somewhere, but I didn't know that was that pre-existing or.
That's a great question. That was the first that I had seen of that, but that term may or may not be. Maybe Marshall just made it up, but I think it was probably something that existed before that.
I'm just kind of surprised.
Can't say with certainty.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that the national media hasn't picked up on it like Snowmageddon or Polar Vortex or something. I guess it hasn't done. You know what? No, it'll be a couple days from now. Once it does something bad.
Yeah, once you start to see the flooding,
they'll backtrack and stamp it Mayan Express, and then we're going to hear that from now until Kingdom Come.
The precipitable water values are remarkable on Wednesday over Oklahoma, or over Arkansas and Louisiana, up in the 99th percentile. And somebody in Shreveport or Texarkana or Little Rock or El Dorado or Monroe, they're going to just be inundated with rain from this thing. Goodness.
Why don't we fend this off and let's call it the WeatherBrains Express and get ahead of it, and then we'll have all the promotion that will come once it dumps all that rain and back.
Yeah. Since the whole thing's a scam, WeatherBrains Express.
It's marketing. We need to own the hashtag.
So, Victor, you've got a lot of people listening to the show in traditional Tornado Alley and Dixie Tornado Alley. Your thoughts on the tornado season?
So at least through the end of March, look for above-average activity levels, really over a large swath of Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, eastward towards places like southern Illinois. Nashville would certainly be this time of the year, right in your southeastern states, of course, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and up to the Carolinas. This time of the year, the climatology is in that area, confined to the south central plains and the southeastern United States. And of course, as we go into April, if we remain in this low angular momentum base state, and we keep seeing large troughs enter the west, this threat with climatology will start to shift northward, and we may have potentially a very active severe weather season ahead of us. So the April still sort of remains to be seen here, but as we go through the rest of March, unfortunately, we might see some fairly large events. And as you probably know, this time of the year, with any large system that enters the central plains, there's going to be plenty of wind shear present with it. It's going to be the instability and the surface moisture. And so, unfortunately, if you have the right ingredients, you might be looking at an outbreak sort of situation. Obviously, those are very hard to determine at this point, but there was the GFS and the European where it had a big wound up low here passing just to our west and actually bringing severe weather as far north as potentially the Chicagoland region next week. So just a large area of the country going to be under the gun for severe weather, and don't ever let your guard down, that's for sure.
Great. I'm digging a hole. Hey, Brian, you wanted to mention the newsletter, the email Skywritings newsletter, so promote it. Go.
Oh, yes. Well, we kind of went into a bit of a gap here for February, but we put out another one this morning. So if you'd like to join the other 484 subscribers, just go to our weather page, our weatherbrains.com, and you can sign up. I think it's on the left-hand side of the page. You can sign up for Skywritings, and all we want to know is your name and your zip code so we can kind of track where you are. We have the most number of subscribers, as you might imagine, from Alabama, but Oklahoma and Texas are duking it out, so they're coming up close, second and third, as I remember. But
so Brian, who do you sell this email list to?
Nobody at the moment. We're taking goods.
Come on,
a Learjet would be nice.
We need some more Virginia subscribers.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
We do not give the information out to anybody. We don't know who subscribes.
No.
That's all we do with it.
They're too busy unsubscribing for us to give it out.
It's all done through MailChimp, so we don't do anything with the mailing list at all except send newsletters. Infrequently, we will not fill your mailbox with a lot of crud. Hope to keep it meaningful and just on a regular to irregular basis. Right now, an irregular basis.
And it really hurts Brian's feelings when you unsubscribe, so don't do that.
especially within 10 minutes of sending it out.
A man that looks like Colonel Sanders cry. That's not good. Bill, you wanted to plug the National Weather Association annual meetings, so go.
Yeah, Norfolk, September 10th through the 15th, James. A huge event. It's going to be on a par, hopefully, with what happened in Oklahoma City last year. So that's coming up. The abstract deadline is coming up faster than usual. I think it is March the 15th. So go to the National Weather Association site and check that. You get that flood of last-minute abstracts coming in, and it's going to be a really big deal. Lots of special events. We will have a Weather Fest again this year. For those who remember, in Birmingham, we had a public-facing event on Saturday. We're going to do the same thing in Norfolk on Saturday morning, and we're going to expect as many folks as we can from the Weather Enterprise to come out and help us. So we'll be reaching out to all of you, and Victor will be reaching out to you. Hopefully the College of DuPage will have a presence there. So mark that on the calendar to come in on Friday night the 9th and be there on Saturday the 10th as we do WeatherFest in Norfolk.
Now, Bill, you're some big shot with the NWA. What are you the president or the head honcho? What was your title there?
Actually, I was, amazed to be elected vice president this year, James. I ran against Miles Musio. I didn't really run. They kind of, had to have somebody to run against Miles, and I don't know how I won. But anyway, when Dave Freeman, the president, called me up to tell me the news, it was like, okay, go ahead and give it to me quick. But somehow I managed to win election, and it's a 2-year term. And the great thing about it for me, y'all know how much I love the annual meeting, and just this year the council voted to give the vice president. A lot of the vice presidents don't really have jobs. Vice President Biden or these folks don't really have meaningful jobs. Now this is a meaningful job because I get to be the liaison to the council about the annual meeting, so I'm very excited about it.
I had to buzz Bill on politics here. We buzz political topics here on this show.
Well, at least we didn't get into the size of anybody's hands or anything like that.
Please. Oh.
Bill, when is registration opening up for Norfolk?
It's already open. The hotel block is wide open, and
yeah, that's right.
So, Bill, since you're a big shot in the NWA, why the move from October into September? What's up with that?
For years, James, the event was really hampered by sequestration and things in the federal government, and the goal is to move it 1 month earlier and hopefully remove that obstacle from the event going forward in the future.
Wow.
He sounds like a vice president talking now. I mean, that was a good talking points answer right there. That was good. All right, time now for picks of the week. This is where we go around the horn and we share something that is weather related. All right, this can be website, or this can be weather hardware, weather instruments, a book, anything that is remotely related to weather. Let's start with Brian Peters. Brian, what's your pick of the week?
And I do have a pick this week. Let me see if I can figure out which window it's in. My pick is something called a global map of wind, weather, and ocean conditions. And it's just fascinating. It doesn't show you the analysis. It shows the actual wind or ocean conditions or other weather elements. And it's just absolutely fascinating. So it's got a long URL, so we'll put the post or the link up there on our page.
Yep, and all these links will be on WeatherBrains.com. Mine, it is a WeatherBrains wiki. A friend of mine is Will Johnson. I met Will a few years ago. Will lives in Tennessee, big WeatherBrains fan. This guy knows, he has an amazing memory of weather. He loves it. He loves weather history. And anyway, he created a WeatherBrains wiki. Wow, all you ever wanted to know about this show. It's on that site, and we'll put the link up on WeatherBrains.com. Aubrey, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is a Twitter picture. I follow this guy on Twitter. It's at Rob Wright with a W Images. And I found him through one of you guys, someone retweeting him, and he has some amazing photos. He retweeted this other guy named Jake, who took some great thunderstorm shots from Wisconsin last night, and they are absolutely phenomenal.
Awesome.
They are. Wow.
It's not this picture, is it, Aubrey? Who makes these memes? I mean,
No.
some people. I mean, wow.
There's an app. There's an app where you can make memes.
Yeah, I figured there's got to be some kind of app or something where it's easy to do because these things are floating around all the time. All right, so let's go to Dr. John Scala. John, what's your pick of the week?
Yeah, James, what I found, if I can bring this up. Here we go. Yeah, what I found was a time lapse using all of the satellites. So it is an entire year worth of satellite imagery. And you can loop this and look at every storm that occurred in 2015 across the world. It's spectacular.
Ooh, and again, the link will be up on weatherbrains.com. Kevin, what's your pick of the week?
I have a notice from our friend Dennis Feltgen at National Hurricane Center. This is a list of the changes that they're making for 2016, and there's just a handful of them. I found it interesting, though. There's an update to the tropical cyclone forecast cone. That's that ever-widening cone that shows the track of a tropical system. And I guess I didn't know this. I didn't really think about it, but it's actually made of individual circles as opposed to a cone. Right. And after 72 hours, they are scaling the cones back a little, making them just a tiny bit smaller, which I think suggests an improvement in at least the thought of forecast accuracy out to a certain time. But you can go and find the link and read about that.
Awesome. I think Bill hung up on us. Who made Bill mad this week? Was that you, Kevin?
He's having audio trouble, it said.
Okay.
He lost the ability to hear us.
I have his pick of the week if you...
Well, go.
It's Tim Vasquez Weather Map Handbook. And again, it's a long URL, so I'll post it on the webpage.
Awesome. All right, now, Victor, I've stalled as long as I can, so now we're going to flip it over to you. Got to come up with something for a pick of the week here.
I'm going to break the ruls. I have 3 quick ones. The first one will be...
It's a
I know, I made the golden mistake.
You're going to make my head explode.
Yep. The first quick one is the 2016 Severe Convection and Climate Workshop. I just talked about that. We'll be tweeting under the hashtag SevCon16 on Wednesday and Thursday. And this Saturday, we have the 25th Annual DuPage Advanced Spotter Training Seminar at Wheaton College in DuPage County, where we had over 500 people already registered for that. Emergency managers, weather enthusiasts, spotters. It's one of the longest running, I think, spotter training sessions in probably in the U.S. And finally, my true pick of the week is skylapse.org. Skylapse.org. It's a collection of time lapses and a website put together by Dr. Walker Ashley at NIU, and it's basically weather in motion. So check it out. It's one of our favorite things to do when we storm chase is to take time lapse photography, and Walker's hosting a lot of those videos on skylapse.org. So check it out.
Cool. And again, all of these pics will be up on the website. WeatherBrains.com. So, most people listen to the show driving down the road, and if you want to go back and check out the links, it's always up on the website. So, Dr. John, we want a full report out there after this conference this week.
Yeah, I told Brian I'd write an article for the next Sky Writings.
I'm very interested to see that ESPN is there. And I think everybody is interested in venue safety and learning more about it. I think there's obviously a lot for them to learn. There's probably a lot for all of us to learn. But I think that's the right place at the right time. And hopefully, surely something good's going to come out of this thing.
But just remember, we have been doing that kind of thing ever since the Olympics in '96.
And you were involved with that.
I was, yes. And we had
Awesome.
a lot of different challenges with that many people over a 6-week period.
Yeah, we had an interesting case here. What was it? We've had so many little severe weather events. I think we had one last week where Auburn University, all the students were advised to shelter. And the truth is the tornado signature was really not close to the campus. It was northeast of there and moving away. And, the problem is, John, we've got a lot of these schools like Penn State and the University of Oklahoma and Texas A&M with this incredible presence of all these meteorologists. But what about these big colleges that don't have a single meteorologist on campus, you know?
Yeah, do they have an action plan?
Right.
And we got into trouble in my hometown because we had 300 people in the polling place, and the tornado path was 1.8 miles north of us. So we had some sheltering in place, too.
Right. And again, all of this is easier said than done. I mean, this is a hard issue when you've got all these people crammed into one place or into one, you know, college town or one campus or one venue and doing the right thing. And I think in the case of Auburn, they did the right thing. You know, what's funny, that polygon literally split that campus in half. And again, the campus was never in danger. If you could have live access to radar, you'd see that. But I think they did the right thing in that the polygon split the campus and, you know, the students sheltered. They really didn't have to, but in that case, it's better to be safe than sorry. But I have seen many times where these big venues make decisions to you know, evacuate or put everything on hold when they really don't need to. That's the nice thing about the storm-based warnings. You know, if you're in, like I say all the time, if you're in the polygon, respect it, and if you're not, you're okay. And hopefully some of our friends there in that meeting this week will learn about how to handle things. And ESPN, those guys have an interesting position, and we get frustrated. You know, they say some boneheaded stuff about weather, but then again, that's not what they do. They're sports people, so maybe they'll hire Dr. John as their full-time meteorologist.
There you go.
I mean, that would be slightly awesome, I guess. Aubrey, so anything else from you before we go? But, you know, you and Kevin, this is your last chance.
No, I'm good. Looking forward to all the warm weather this week. And I'm loving my new shift.
Yes. So how is the night shift working for you?
I was a bartender for 12 years. I'm made to be on the night shift. So this is how I usually function.
Show title?
Yeah, show title. I was a bartender for how many years?
12.
12.
Wow. I thought made for the night shift would be the title.
Made for the night shift. I like
I'll
that.
stick with Attacked by a Possum.
I think there is no doubt the worst shift in the television weather business is that morning shift. Oh.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. I'm so glad I won't have to do that except in an emergency.
I have done that shift one time in 20 years. I had to speak somewhere, and we were on a staff shortage. The only way to make it work, I had to work the morning shift, and it was like I felt like a pinball in a pinball machine. You know, you're getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're getting down to the TV station about 2:30 or 3. You go on the air at 4, and it just doesn't stop. I mean, you can't think. I mean, it's hard enough to, you know, go to the bathroom just to go pee for a minute, but it is just like nonstop. So
yeah, but you loved it back in the day when you got to be on the Country Boy Eddie show.
Yeah. Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah, back in Kevin's day, we had a country morning show that started at like 4 o'clock. And if we had an all-night severe weather deal, we'd stay up there all night. You knew that it's been a long night when you see the Country Boy Eddie entourage come in the studio. I mean,
I used to do that morning shift for Dan occasionally, and the nicest people in the world, but you have not lived until you have sat in the weather office at 3:30 in the morning and hear the Country Boy Eddie show people come in and start tuning up.
I bet. And then Eddie would ring that cowbell. You know, all right, we got Kevin Selly, the world's greatest weatherman. Kevin, come on over here, neighbor.
Nice man. Is he still with us? Is he passed?
Yes, he
still
is.
With us?
He's fine.
That's great.
He looks no different today than he looked 20 years ago. I mean,
well, it's because he's full of jogging in a jug. He's preserved for the next 100 years.
Jogging in a jug.
Jogging in a jug. I love it.
That's what they used to advertise. Jogging in a jug.
Hey, Victor, if somebody wants to get in touch, this is your chance to plug away. Plug whatever you want. Go.
Well, if you are interested in the ERTAF forecast, these extended range tornado predictions, we issue them every Sunday evening from starting basically on March 1st and going all the way till the end of June. So if you just check out that ERTAF webpage, hopefully maybe we can put a link up to it on the WeatherBrains homepage, and just check it every Sunday evening, and it will come out and update, and the verification stats will populate alongside of it. So it should be interesting to see how this progresses. You know, we're definitely putting the rubber to the road here. Certainly this March. So lot more to be done.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to see how it plays out in coming months and years. But looking at the clock on the wall, I've got to step across the hall here to Studio A and do some television news. WeatherBrains is typically recorded every Monday night at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. For those that watch it live, they typically gather together at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. We know most of you listen. Our email address is email@weatherbrains.com. Aubrey loves to get email. We do a weather round or email segment every week. Our social media accounts are there as well. So thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you all next week. Have a great weekend. God bless. All right, we survived. Hey, Victor, thank you. You were a great guest. We appreciate you coming on the show. That was great. Very great comments coming in on tonight. So thank you.